Hello everyone and welcome back to Video Editing 1 with Professor Harris. Today we're getting into the second book, Avid Media Composer Fundamentals 2, also known as MC110. If you haven't seen the first book or the first lecture videos I did covering MC101, that's a playlist directly on my channel tab, I guess you could say. And there's a playlist there that you can watch. Thank you everyone who did watch that first series. I got a lot of great feedback and I got a lot of heartwarming comments about people telling me that I was saving their semester because they're taking video editing at another university and their professor was all technically minded and didn't really go through the program. So I'm happy to provide a resource that I felt like I needed when I was getting the certification myself. So great, awesome stuff. And if you want to continue to like and subscribe to the channel, that's great. That helps me out as a university professor as I continue at the university I am currently at now. So let's get into Lesson 1, Fundamentals and Beyond. So establishing an effective workflow on any editing system requires familiarity with certain technical concepts. These concepts form the foundation for everything that happens in an editing system. This lesson includes a technical primer that can help you not only make informed decisions while working in Media Composer, but throughout a project, from production and acquisition to editing, finishing, output, and delivery. All right, let's look at the goals for this lesson. Okay, so we're going to review fundamental concepts, establish a basic workflow, understand project raster dimensions, create a custom project, and set up a project. Now, the book says that we are not going to be working in any lessons. Of course, that's not true. I'm going to be working here in Avid Media Composer so we can see what we're doing. And I will be referencing some of the media we used in the last book, so that would be Rock Climber and Jacuzzi. But I'm going to sit here for now because we're going to get into it. Firstly, reviewing fundamental concepts. So this course assumes that you've taken the MC101 Media Composer Fundamental 1 course. Again, if you haven't, feel free to check back on my channel. There's a playlist for it. But depending on when you did this and how much you worked in Media Composer, especially while going through MC101, those concepts might not be fresh in your mind, so you might need a bit of review. The book does a lovely thing. It takes some time here to review with us, so let's do that before we move forward. Non-linear/non-destructive editing. As you may recall, Media Composer is a NLE, that means a non-linear editing system, just like any video editing app on your computer, tablet, or phone. So this simply means that you can edit clips into a sequence in any order that you want. Plus, editing in Media Composer is non-destructive, so it's not damaging the media that we create. So during the MC101 course, you cut part of a clip from a sequence, and the system didn't permanently delete the unwanted material. You could revisit that clip later and see it in its entirety. So when you're trimming media in your timeline, it's not destroying the media that you're working with. You could even reuse parts of a clip many times in the same or different sequences, and let's see if you remember why. Well, when you edit clips in Media Composer, you're not editing the media files themselves. Instead, again, you're working with metadata that links to the media files. You're not actually, again, you're not working with the video that you recorded. You're not taking the video from your SD card and manipulating it. You're just manipulating data that Media Composer is creating from that project, from that video file. So project and media files. So we have the select project window open here. Does this look familiar? It should look familiar. So the select project window opens when you launch Media Composer, opens automatically, and you'll use it to open an existing project, switch between projects, or start a new project. This is just a reminder that you can store your projects in two preset locations under a custom location that you define. So if you don't see your existing projects that you're looking for, you can use this drop down at the location menu to switch between your private Avid projects and your shared Avid projects. So as shown here on my screen, obviously we can see the different location paths, and for your reference, you can see them here, the different directories. On Mac at least, it's user, then login name, then documents, Avid projects, that's the private one. And then there's, for the shared one, it's used, shared, Avid Media Composer, shared Avid projects. So again, I've said this before back in 101, but you should almost always be clicking shared, because then everyone who logs onto that computer can have access to that specific project. Again, it's hard-coded, you can't change it, and so if you set it just to be you, it's not going to be I can't grade it if I'm your professor, and your professor can't grade it. You can also pick custom locations. That's super cool and super fun. Wait, I should probably talk about the windows, though. On Windows, it would be users, public, documents, shared Avid projects. But then private, it would be users, username, documents, Avid projects. So that's the private versus shared, or shared versus private, I should say, on Windows. But all operating system users can access projects placed again in the shared location. But if we wanted to place a project in a custom location, we can set a path by using the browse folder icon here on the right next to our locations menu. So if I had a project, let's say on my flash drive, I could scroll down here to my Prof. Harris flash drive, and I have a project stored here in my one Avid Media Composer project, Minecraft According to a University Professor. That's my project. So I could simply click this folder and then hit open. If you're confused by this at all, if you're confused about setting custom locations for your saved projects, I have a video on this I just made. It's at the end of the MC110 course. I'm going to put it in the description. I'll put the link in the description of this video for your reference. So if you're trying to save your projects to a flash drive or custom location, you can watch that video there. Awesome. What else can we look at here? When you install the MC110 Media Kit, you place the MC110 effects and the MC110 parkour project folders in a specific location on the operating system level. Did you open any of those projects perchance? If you did open those projects, you'd find a collection of files. This structure differs from other applications on the market today and offers some distinct advantages. But before we get into that, let me just say where you can get those files, because Media Composer in the book just says, oh, download the files, and then it's like, well, where am I supposed to go? Well, I did a little bit of digging and I found a site. It's editstock.com/product/MC110, and you're going to download these first 3. So these are the 2022 packets. By the time you're watching this, they might say 2023, but you're going to download all 3 of these. And these don't just contain the project files for anesthesia. They also do the Tennessee parkour and the jiu-jitsu and whatever. So yeah, this would be the website. I'll include the link to this in the description of this video as well. So you can just follow that link and download these first 3. Make sure you have a strong internet connection, because each one of these is 4+ gigabytes, and so that's going to take some time, and that's just the zip file. Okay, for your reference, I've got my downloads folder. I just unpacked the first one. I'm going to unpack the second one and the third one. You'll just double click them on Mac, and it's going to unpack these zip files. And then I'm going to show you where you're going to then put these unzipped files on the operating system level. So we'll give this a minute, and I'll unpack this and the third one. Okay, so we finished unpacking them. I've got the first one for some reason popped down here into 2021, but then I've got the second one and the third one. Each one of these files has different things inside them, so we're going to break this down slowly. But first, to make sense of all of this, I'm just going to move these to my desktop. So I'm just going to drag and drop these folders that I've extracted onto my desktop. Okay, so I moved these folders to my desktop. Here they are now, and inside each one is just different random files that may or may not mean anything to you. I also did a little bit of digging, and I found out that the University of Texas at Austin has a nice little breakdown sheet of exactly where everything's supposed to go. Thank you very much. I'm going to copy this link, and I'll also have this in the description of the video if you want to follow these steps. I am going to do the same thing but different, and I'm going to do it rather quickly here for your guys' reference. So first we're going to open up a Finder window, so we'll just open up this, and then we'll have this set to the side, and making sure that we're selected on it, we're going to do File, New Finder window, and then we're going to navigate to this computer's kind of hard drive and stuff. So I'm going to go to My Computer, we'll go to Macintosh HD, and then in Users, Shared, and then we'll go Avid Media Composer, no spaces. There's one with spaces, we want no spaces. And then inside this, we're going to go to Avid Space Media Files, the MXF, and inside this MXF document, we can see that's a custom project I made, but these are the files from the first book. That's the 101 files. If I go into my MC110-1, I see there's also an Avid Media Files and MXF, and we can drag this 110 into our other MXF on our hard drive. I mean, they're both on our hard drive, but this is in a location that it needs to be. We're going to open the second folder here. We're going to drag this 111, close that, and then we'll go to the 112, and we'll drag this in here as well. So now we've got all those files inside the Avid Media Composer folder, so those are in the correct place. Looking back into this folder here, the MC110-1, again, we have those Avid media files. We already moved it out into the other MXF here over in our hard drive routed media composer files. But we also have the course materials here, and this is where things get dicey. So you're going to make sure you refer to that link. It's going to want, let me zoom out here so we have some reference as to where we are with this. Let me zoom down, and we'll zoom back in. Thank you, University of Texas in Austin, for this. So we have inside course materials, we have project files. So let's pull this up. We have project files, and in the project files, we have the TN parkour and the dash effects, right? And both of these projects are actual Avid projects. So if I open them up, we can see they have bins, they've got different media inside them, metadata, things like that. But these project files need to be moved to our shared Avid projects folder in the correct directory. So back here in our, if we are in shared, and then we go back into Media Composer, no spaces, we're going to look for shared Avid projects here, and we can drag and drop these files into here, and then we'll be able to see these when we launch in Media Composer. And I go to my shared projects folder. Let me switch directories and see if it updates. And then I can scroll down. Yep, there they are. So now we can see the effects, and we can see that parkour, those projects appear here because this is the same directory as this folder. Awesome. Okay, so let me hide Media Composer again real quick. And then what else does it say? Okay, so the MC110 assets. So this is where it gets a little more simple. If we go into our course materials again, we have our MC110 assets. These assets are like videos and sound effects and music that make up, that we'll be importing or linking to when we're actually working with our projects. For my students, because of the way the computers are set up in the labs, I would probably, let's store this MC110 assets. We're going to throw this in our shared Avid projects folder just because this won't get reset. If I put this somewhere else, if I put that folder, I just dropped this one. If I put that, let's say in documents at the university we're at, every time someone signs out, all of these folders, pictures, videos, music, documents, they get deleted. All the added files get deleted. So we'll leave this in shared Avid projects. And if you're working on a computer, feel free to store these MC110 assets in your documents or videos somewhere predominant that you know it's not going to get moved because your media will go offline when you're working in the program. Okay, so now if we go through these folders, they should be largely empty. Yeah, there's nothing in them now because I moved the assets to our shared. All right, we can go ahead and close this stuff, and I've moved everything to the proper location, so now I can just delete these if I wanted to, and I will. But if we wanted to work off of a flash drive, let's get into what that would look like. So the first thing we'd want to do is head back to our downloads folder where we have these 3 zip files. For simplicity, I'm just going to throw them on the desktop here, and then we're going to unpack them by double-clicking them one at a time. And that's going to create new folders, those same folders we were looking at earlier. I'm going to sit here and we'll be back when they're all done. Okay, we've finished unpacking these 3 folders from our zip files. Now we're going to open our flash drive, and in our flash drive, we're going to do this. We're going to make a new folder. We're going to title this USB. Oh, we're going to want all caps on that. USB shared Avid projects. Cool. And then we'll open USB shared Avid projects. We'll navigate back into our MC110 folder here, and then under course materials, keep shrinking these so we can make sense of them. We have project files, and we're going to move these project files because, again, these are the actual Avid projects. We're going to move these to USB shared Avid projects that we just created. That's going to take about 5 seconds, apparently, because this is all metadata. Remember, it's all just code. We're going to back out, and then we're going to go back over to our USB here. We'll back out from there, and then in our Avid space media files, we're going to open this, We're going to open our MXF document, and we know what's going to happen now. We're going to open our, we'll close this, just reference. Let me open that actually, and then we'll go to our Avid media files. We'll open this, we'll open that MXF document, and we'll move the 110 folder here. And that's going to be, yeah, that's going to be significantly more. Make sure you get yourself a large flash drive. Mine is a 1 terabyte USB, USB-C, and USB mini reversible with 1,000 gigabytes again. So I have plenty of space to get all this done. And if you've got one that's around 32, you're going to be cutting it close with the file management. So we're going to wait these 6 minutes for these files to transfer, and then I'll get back to you. That was literally the longest 6 minutes of my entire life. Okay, all right, next one. Here we go. We're going to drag the 111 folder to this. No. Okay, that's finished. All right, last one. And we'll move this, 112. Okay, cool. That finished up. All right, now we're going to get into, we'll close this real quick. We'll get into back into here. We'll shrink that. And then, so we've got all our Avid media files moved to our Avid media files, MXF doc, and the other thing. Let's go to course materials, and in course materials, we have the project files. We don't need the project files because we already moved those over. We're going to look at the MC110 assets. Again, this is those videos and things like that. We'll just move this MC110 assets. We'll just drop this directly onto our flash drive, and we'll see how long this takes. Okay, plenty of time later, and it's finally finished up. We can close this now, and we've got our flash drive all prepared for editing. I'll show you later what that looks like. But right now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to get your info on these folders here. Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. We just know that this is a lot of storage. I mean, if we reference even this one, we'll get info here. We could just see that this is 7.65 gigabytes. That's a lot of information. You're going to fill up your drive very quickly. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to delete these. I would delete these, but I'm going to use these zips to send to my students when I'm in class later. Okay, and sometime later, we're back into Avid Media Composer. Ta-da! Let's open one of these projects. Let's do the TN Parkour one. We'll hit open. Oh, quickly though, now that we got all our project files onto our flash drive, if you wanted to route to your flash drive, you would click this little folder icon, and we could scroll down here to My Flash Drive, Prof. Harris, and then we could select USB shared Avid projects, and I could hit open, and it's going to show both the parkour and the effects projects that I stored there about, 20 minutes ago in real time for me. Okay, but we're going to navigate back to our basic Avid Media Composer shared Avid projects folder. And then we'll open the parkour project here. Cool. So click open. Bada bada bing is loading. All right, Media Composer. We're back in Media Composer. Feels good. Let's give this a second to load all the volumes. It's sourcing from my flash drive. It's not sourcing from my computer. I should probably eject my flash drive then, if it's going to source from there. Okay, I'm going to do that. Give me a second here. Let me slide this over, and we'll, probably shouldn't eject it while it's being used. Okay, I have to relaunch Avid. I'll be back. Okay, finally back in. All right, welcome back to Avid Media Composer. We're going to recall here the Media Composer interface. So we have the 3 main windows and a toolbar that make up the default interface. Do you remember which they are? I'm going to hover over them, and you should say them out loud. Number 1, number 2, number 3. We also have this on the side, number 4. Okay, if you said number 1 was our bin container, this includes the 2 tabs. We've got our bins and our effects palette. You would be correct. Next, we have the Composer window. This includes the 2 monitors, our source on the left and our record on the right. And then we have at the bottom here our timeline. This shows the roadmap of an open sequence. So this is what's actually being edited, what we're compiling. And then number 4, we obviously have our workspace bar. This is where this provides quick access to the different panel arrangements and different workspaces. So you go effects and colors and audio and edit, and it's all wonderful and great. How'd you do? Did you remember the different windows? That would be great if you did. If you're one of my students, you just took the Avid certification test. This is a very 101 question, so I really hope you got that all correct. You're going to use each one of these together and throughout this course, obviously, while we're working on projects here in Avid Media Composer and projects that I assign to you over the semester. All right, let's wrap up this section by quickly reviewing some key interface features covered in MC101. These include, by default, the main interface windows as opened and connected to the docked panels. So when we resize one, the other adjusts to accommodate, so we can be sliding this back and forth, and they're going to adjust. They're going to make those adjustments automatically. What else? We got the 3 buttons on the top right corner for Windows, or top left corner on Mac. Typically on the operating system, these 3 buttons mean we got the yellow minus sign that minimizes the application. Wow, this is some basic stuff. The green plus sign obviously enlarges, and then X prompts to leave the application. And we're going to get the leave application dialog box if I hit the little X here, and we're going to say no. We're going to say cancel to that. All right. So each window includes a vertical title bar that turns purple when activated. So we can see our purple title bar here, or we can click the effects. When it's active, it turns purple. And they turn gray when they're inactive. We can click the title bar, for example, on the effects palette, and we can activate that window like I just did. So to close a window, if we want, we can hit the X on the side. So I could close this by hitting this little X button, or I could close my bins by hitting X. Same thing with Composer and also Timeline. As you work, you'll open additional tools. Each opens as a floating window, and you can dock the tool to a panel using the interface by dragging its title bar to the green drop zone area. So if I go to Tools and I open the Audio Mixer tool, we're going to see it opens as a floating window, but I could select this pink area and I could dock it to an area in my workspace here. And then Avid Media Composer is going to save that in my user settings and think that I actually want the Audio Mixer above my bins. And I don't, so I'm going to close it by hitting the little purple X. Nice. We can quickly switch between workspaces, edit color, effects, and audio with the icon workspaces here on the right. So we could just click these little icons, and that's going to switch workspaces like I showed you earlier. We could additionally, we could go up to Windows, and we could go to Workspaces, and we could switch here as well. Don't forget, if you mess up your workspace, so let's say we adjust something dramatically and we think that it's ugly, I could click the little tab arrow, and I could do Restore Current to Default, and I could hit Restore, and it's going to restore this workspace back to the way that it should look. Cool. We can also customize Media Composer's interface overall look. This includes going to File and then Settings, and in File Settings we can go to User tab, and then under the User tab we can double click the interface setting and customize options. So let's scroll for the interface settings. Where is that? Let me shrink these so I can actually read. There we go. I can double click interface. I've got all these settings. I can change colors and all kinds of fun stuff. We can customize things like increasing and decreasing the brightness. So we could use this slider here. It really customize this the way we want, but we are bats. We are creatures of the night, so we will always leave it at super dark. If you're a media student, or if you're a student in media, you know that this is the case. Okay, do these features seem familiar? If so, that's great. If not, that's fine as well. But we're going to use them during this course, and you can use these on your projects to customize colors and all kinds of stuff. All right, let's move now into establishing a basic workflow. Since creatives use Media Composer to edit a wide variety of programs throughout the global industry, it is impossible to preset one standard workflow. That said, we can present a common workflow for moving your project through the 9 stages, from launch to final delivery. In fact, Media Composer has structured this workflow to match the whole book. So the workflow for this course is going to follow as I say. First, lesson 1 will be creating a project. Lesson 2 will be inputting media. Lesson 3 will prepare the footage and bins for editing. Lesson 4, we will create, edit, and re-edit sequences into a structured story. That's lesson 4 and 5. We're going to trim the sequences and improve pacing and timing in lesson 6. We'll finalize sound design and audio mixing in lesson 7. And we'll add titles and effects to solve problems, create magic, or add eye candy in lessons 8 through 13. As well as we're going to export the finished program for delivery in lesson 14, and then clean up the system by managing and deleting projects and project media in lesson 15. So now that we've reviewed the workflow that we're going to follow throughout the course, let's look at some technical aspects that can impact our project and Media Composer's performance. All right, let's move into going beyond HD. During the MC110 course, you briefly explored project formats, including raster dimensions. For example, we had 1920 by 1080 full raster HD that we worked with on a lot of the projects. If you pursue a professional editing career, you'll likely encounter various raster dimensions that reflect camera technology's progression, from standard definition to archival footage to 4K footage that can be captured with today's smartphones and beyond. So let's look at an image from the book. This image to me, this makes me laugh so much. I don't know why I think this image is so funny. It just looks so dumb. It's like, oh wow, 4K, and then the image is super pixelated. But anyway, what is Avid trying to tell us? Video resolutions often confuse consumers, particularly as it relates to TVs. Post-production professionals need to understand the terminology for video resolutions that they work with, especially. So we also have a chart from the book that I'm going to show you, but this isn't the chart. This is just a funny image, and it's great. It's great. Okay, so here's the actual chart. The following table can help you master video resolution terminology. So I'm laughing at the dumb sports car image, but this is actually incredibly important if you're working with different video rasters and sizes. It's important to know the difference, especially when working with that high resolution video. So if you can find terminology listed on this table, if you find it confusing, you're not alone. Just keep in mind that as camera technology progressed, so did we, and so did the way that we describe the resolutions. So let's look at how. So before high resolution raster emerged, we identified SD and HD rasters by vertical resolution. For example, we had 480p, 720p, and 1080i. So with greater than HD rasters, we switched to the horizontal resolution reference. So we went to 2K, 4K, 8K, etc. So we went from vertical, measuring things vertically, to measuring things horizontally. So now it's all side to side when it used to be up and down. Now, 1920 by 1080 Full HD or FHD is close to the 2K spec of 2048 pixels. Yet, no one calls it 2K HD, and we also have 3840 by 2160 Ultra High Definition or UHD, but that isn't called 4K UHD either. According to Google Trends, consumers and professionals tend to use the term 4K instead of Ultra HD. There's a link in the book that references something. Anyway, but therefore this can cause this course is generally going to use the term 4K to refer to 4K raster variants. Working with 4K and larger footage presents its own challenges in terms of storage, playback, and image processing. For example, the 4K raster has 4 times the pixels as Full HD. In other words, 4 times the information. Now imagine 8K and 16K. We're talking about disgustingly large file sizes. So since they produce dramatically larger file sizes, greater than 4K footage requires more powerful computer systems, plus faster drives and drive connections for playback, copying, and moving around things. So you're going to want the fastest tech, you're going to want that gaming PC, you're going to want the best performance possible when working with extremely high footage quality. I mean, again, referring to this stupid image, we've got our 4K, we've got some high resolution here, but it goes even higher. It's to go even further beyond. as they say in Dragon Ball. So this is reflected in Media Composer's minimum system requirements and separate features performance chart. We can see that in the book. I'm going to pull that up now. So here's that chart for your reference. You can compare the specs and make sure that you've got the necessary power to run Avid Media Composer when working with 4K and 4K footage and the larger. So please take some time to explore the resource shown in this image. Avid goes to great lengths to document this information so you can get the best performance results with their systems. Thank you, Avid. Very cool. Avid employs a rapid development and release cycle for Media Composer to keep pace with ever-changing technology. So system requirements may change with new releases. That's a given. All right, working with Avid codecs. So as you may recall, when importing or exporting video media, you need to select a you need to select English in your. So as you may recall, when importing or exporting video media, you need to select a video resolution. To save storage space and boost Media Composer's performance during playback and effects processing, Avid developed codec families for HD and high-resolution projects. This is called DNxHD and then DNxHR, respectively. So moving forward, keep those in mind. Those are the two Avid codecs. So when you create media, you'll see multiple options. Each is a resolution independent and reflects compression quality. And now the obvious question is, well, Professor Harris, which one should I choose? Well, when working with Avid HD projects, you're going to choose one of the following. So we've got all these different Avid codecs in the DNxHD or whatever. So we have all these different options. And then these are the high resolution projects. These are the Ultra HDs, the 4Ks, the 2Ks. These are the codecs you would choose for those. Cool. Also I love how Avid, see this table? It doesn't line up with the other table. It doesn't line up over here either. And also, you guys need to fix your quizzes because you have answers in the answer key at the end of some of the quizzes on each chapter. Some of the questions are wrong. You answered your own questions wrong. In the 101 book, I found text on some of the images that said oh, this picture needs to be edited or swapped, like editor's notes from people who were working on the book. And my students recently, when they were taking their certification test and the review quizzes, and my students are watching this now, so hello. You guys were telling me, oh, the answer to this question, why is it different on your quizzes? Well, the answer is my book has some correct answers and some wrong answers. So thanks, Avid. Very cool that you're making me dig through your material to figure out what's correct and what's not correct when it comes to your program. You'd think they'd have that ironed out by now. Anyway. Okay, when you click video resolution, the pop-up menu in the Media Composer source browser. So let's pull up the source browser. Let's make a new bin and we'll add some media to this project. So we'll title this test and hit enter. Then I'm going to make sure that it's open and we'll do input source browser. And then if we set it to import, we can see here in the resolution drop-down menu available codecs for our project. So this project was already created in the select project window, right? Available codecs for import appear here in this drop-down menu, and we have our Avid native codecs there.
Codecs can be a dry and confusing topic, and few people get excited about it when they're talking. So since gaining a basic understanding is a valuable skill, let's wrap up this section with some key reminders as far as codecs go. So first, DNxHD and DNxHR options appear when creating media during capture, import, transcode, render, and export operations. Secondly, third-party applications like DaVinci Resolve can accept and create media in the DNxHD and DNxHR format. So there are other programs out there that can do this Avid native format. Number 3, since Avid codecs are resolution independent, the data rates vary from frame size, bit depth, and subsampling. For example, we could have 4:4:4 or 4:2:2, if you know what that means, influence data rates. So we can have those adjusted. or we can have those options. And then DNX HR codecs also support proxy resolutions, which can reduce the file size from a quarter to a 16th of its original size and facilitates easier computing and processing. So we've got some nice process speeding up options with that when we do that file size. And then number 5, we've got both DNX HD and DNX HR codecs provide a way to edit footage on a desktop or laptop computer without connecting to an external RAID array or network. So again, tons of options. Some of you may have understood that. Some of you may not have. That's okay. To the more techie people, that might have been right up your alley. So Avid, quick note here at the bottom, Avid simplified the DNX HD labels with the release of Media Composer 2020.4. So if you work with an earlier version, you'll see the original labels, which include data rates, for example, DNX HD 36 or DNX HD 220. So resolution names and selections, you can find out what's different if you go to when we first launched Media Composer, there's a release version, and there's update kind of patch notes that you can read through if you're interested to learn about previous versions of Avid. But I would assume the more interesting stuff is going to be happening with the current version and versions to come. So keep all that in mind. Let's move on now to creating a new project. Guess what? No matter what type of project you work on, SD, HD, 4K, or a custom size, you'll adhere to the same basic editing workflow overall. So, as you know, this workflow starts with creating a project, and we are here in the Select Project window to do so. So, good news, you'll follow the same steps to create an HD, 4K, or custom project. They're all the same. In the Select Project window, we'll want to use the Format menu to set up our project's raster. So we'll click New Project first in our Select Project window, and then we're going to want to use the Format to select our raster. And we've got a bunch of arrows, a bunch of different project size options. It's crazy to think that we've got 16K options. Look at the resolution. We're talking 16,000 pixels by 8,000 pixels. It's insane. It's insane. When we're down here in 4K, we've got the 3,000, 4,000 range. It's very cool. Very, very cool. All right. But before starting a new project, you're going to keep in mind a few things. Number 1, you're going to give your project a meaningful name that represents the program you'll be editing, but without a version number. So, for example, the title of your movie or a TV show with an episode number. So, you wouldn't want a version number. You would want the episode number. You would want to be very consistent and very intentional about what you were going to name your project. Again, this is a select project name area, so we could name this Gummy Bear episode 2. So we're very intentional about that. Okay. Next, you will, because you'll create multiple versions of sequences instead of the project. So when we are working in, we could do versions of episode 2, but we would do those as sequences within Media Composer. We wouldn't be doing them on a whole different project level, right? Cool. Number 2, we're going to carefully select our project frame rate because you cannot change it later. This is a question that they always ask on the Avid certification exam. The answer is no, you cannot change your frame rate after you've made your project. So make sure you select your frame rate carefully. When you click these different drop downs, it'll sometimes show you the frame rate. So we've got Ultra HD, 30p, 50p, 60p, and so on and so forth. And make sure that these are matching the format that your video is actually recorded in. So if I was recording a 4K, it matters what the resolution is on the camera, so I can pick the correct format and get the best look out of my project. Cool. Awesome. All right, let's move on now to creating custom projects. So as mentioned, you can create a project with a custom raster dimension. As new distribution methods pop up and social media specs change, this becomes important. So if we're posting on TikTok, if we're posting on YouTube, those are going to have different dimensions and even different vertical and horizontal orientations. So let's set up through an example. Let's go through an example here. What if you need to create a video for Instagram on the video feed? So this would be an Instagram reel. For this scenario, you can create a custom project with an 1080 by 1350 raster dimension and a 30 FPS frame rate. So we could come in here and we could hit this format drop down and choose custom, and that's going to let us input our custom format. So we'll do that 1080 by 1350 raster dimension at 30 FPS. So we can use this little drop down and hit 30 FPS. Awesome. To create a custom project, we can make sure, again, we're in the select project window, but we're in the new project. We're going to set a save location for our project as well. So that's one of the first things you always want to do when you are creating a new project is figure out where it's actually going to go. And for instance, if we were going to actually create this project, but we wanted to save it on our flash drive for this new project, we'd click the browse folder icon. Here, again, if I had my flash drive plugged in, I could select it, but it isn't, and then I could navigate to where I wanted to actually put that on my flash drive. So I think for this example, if you remember earlier in the video, I would probably put it in USB shared Avid projects. That's where I would put it if I was going to put it anywhere. But since I'm putting it on my computer, I'm going to put it in shared Media Composer shared Avid projects. So again, any user on the computer can have access to it. Again, we'll set our format to custom, and then in the raster dimension field, we'll enter the desired values. We'll set our frame rate, and then optional, we can click the Save Preset button. So I could save this. If I hit save, I can type a name for this, and I could type Instagram Reel. My caps lock is on. So I could do, I'll Instagram Reel. Now I have a saved preset for what my Instagram Reel would be. And then when I click Formats and I go down to My Presets, we can see my presets appear here. So you could be creating things for TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be, and they'll always appear here in your presets. So when you're going in, you're making a quick project, that's going to be saved there. Awesome. Let's talk about managing presets now. When you save a custom preset, Media Composer saves it to the My Presets category in the Format menu, as I just showed you. And you can add and update and delete presets. To do this, we can click the Manage Preset button in the New Project tab, and we can do the following. So if we go to Manage Presets, we've got a bunch of options. First, we can modify. So we can double-click the width and height value and type and update that. So I could double-click in here, and now I can change directly. So let's say Instagram changes its width or height project requirements or video requirements. I could also change the FPS. We also have the option to add. We can click the add button, and that's going to modify each value. So we can click the add button and modify each value. This is a useful feature when creating a batch of presets. So if I wanted to add another preset, I could just quickly, boom, hit add, and then I could type in those values. I'm going to hit delete so I can remove that. The way you delete would be select one and then hit the delete button. Pretty simple. Awesome. So if you start working with custom presets, no doubt you'll need to work with Preset Manager at some point. So that's how you get here. And, it's a pretty straightforward process. Cool. Let's move now into exploring Avid projects at the operating system level. So when you create a new project, Media Composer adds a new project folder at the operating system level. We've talked about this before. This folder includes a collection of files mentioned in the Reviewing Fundamental Concepts section, and this includes the project file, which is the .avp, which contains the information about the bins and the folders in your project. Then we have the settings file, which is the .xml. I could probably show this to you. Why don't I pull that up? We'll pull it up real quick. So we'll go to My Computer, Macintosh HD, Users, Shared, Avid Media Composer, no spaces, Shared Avid Projects, and then here in Shared Avid Projects, we'll use this parkour as an example. So again, we have our AVP file, which is information about all our bins. Then we have our .xml. Where's our .xml? There it is. There's our .xml. It contains the project's many settings, including the frame rate and audio sample rate. And then we have the default bin file, which is .avb. So we have a bunch of different bins that are already loaded into our project. When you create additional bins, Media Composer automatically adds those files to the project's folder. So we can access the bin files at the operating system level just like this. But you cannot see the contents. So if I tried to double click one of these, it wouldn't reveal the actual contents of that bin. This makes sharing bins as simple as sharing the documents. So if I wanted to send my edit to somebody, let's right click this. Let's get the info on it. We did this a little earlier. We can see this is literally 2.9 megabytes. A photo that I take on my iPhone 11 Pro is 5 megabytes. So Avid is really keeping project file size down when it comes to all this metadata. Again, it's just working with code. So I could literally email this to a buddy, and if we both had a link, if our project was linked, our media was linked on a cloud or like an Avid Nexus or an edit share system, we could just shoot back and forth our edits in emails within seconds, and then launch them from inside Media Composer, which is very cool. All right, setting up a project. So after you create a project, we can change its format if needed. So let's exit out of this. I'll hit. We'll go to the project window. We'll open one of these. We'll go to Rock Climber. Let's destroy Rock Climber. Why not? So if we want to change the project format, we can go to File, and then Settings, and here we're going to ensure that the Format tab is active, so we're on the Format tab. And then in the preset menu, we can select an available format. So we could drop down here, and we could change our format as we see fit. Now remember that we can't change the frame rate. That's not something we can change, but we can change the format. All right, so that's enough of that very quickly. Let's move now to bin creation and naming strategies. So as you've experienced, a new project includes one bin that's named after the project itself. During MC110, you started to organize a new project by renaming the default bins and creating additional ones. Let's take this a step further by considering the following bin creation and naming strategies. So, depending on your project scope, you may need many bins. As you decide what bins to create and how many of them, and how you're going to name them, consider your project's workflow and how the bins you create can serve that workflow. So if you work by and for yourself, you can set up your bins that suit your personal style. But if you're working at a post-production facility, someone else needs to use these files, and you need to make sure that they're explicitly clear when it comes to exactly what these bins are named. For instance, with my students, I typically recommend first having a sequence bin, and then having audio, effects, titles, and video. Those are like the essential bins that I recommend. Now, one of the assignments had us make a folder here for our bins to be contained inside. You can be organized with folders. You can put bins inside folders if you'd like. I prefer, especially working on smaller projects, just to put all my bins out here. But Avid just wants you to know that you can make folders and put your bins inside folders. So, on a TV show, a post-production supervisor often defines the workflow editors and how they will follow, what standards they will follow. Why is this? Well, for many shows, multiple editors work on every episode. So bins get set up by a standard. There has to be a standard that's agreed upon by everyone and something that everyone can understand. That way, one editor can easily pass the scene to a colleague, or an editor can take over from a colleague if they call in sick or need to be on extended leave. With feature films, the senior editor defines a bin organization method. So often they create a bin for every scene, and they use the standard scene setup, scene slash setup slash take name, clip name convention. That's a common one. But back to working on your own projects. Seasoned pros recommend creating a project organization and naming scheme that remains as consistent as possible. This not only improves efficiency while editing, but also helps you when you return to a project after many weeks or months away. So if you're always being organized, if you're using the exact same name conventions from project to project, it's going to be way easier to jump between projects because you're just going to assume, oh, I put my audio files in my audio bin and I know exactly where to look for things. Cool. Beyond Media Composer, managing the post workflow and assets. So next thing we're going to talk about is managing stuff kind of outside of Media Composer on the operating system level. You can boost project management efficiency by creating a standardized project asset folder at the operating system level. So if we're working here, but essentially, if you're working on a USB, if you're working on your computer, you're going to want to keep things organized. For instance, I've got my COM 343 video editing assignment 1. If I double click this and open it, we actually have the Media Composer project. So in here is where you would store the project. And then we have a basic audio folder and a basic video folder. Now, this isn't what Media Composer recommends. This is just what I do for my class. Let me show you quickly what Avid recommends from the book. So here's the Avid reference. This is actually a snapshot from a sample project asset folder from a post house in Salt Lake City, Utah, courtesy of the Utah Valley University, which is an Avid learning partner. And we can see they've got their documents, they've got script, they got finance receipts, transcriptions, CC, script breakdowns, they've got their documents folder, they got their project files, which obviously has their project files, they've got their graphics, they got their sound files, they've got everything organized, voiceover, production audio, got music, reviews, DVD projects, miscellaneous, final deliverables, and their Avid media files. Does the Avid media files look familiar? That's where they're storing their imported, rendered, transcoded, consolidated media on their project level. And you're going to be doing the same as you work more in Avid Media Composer yourself. So, thank you, University of Utah. All right, let's close out this lesson with something to remember. Remember, never place the Avid Space Media Files folder, the one I was just talking about, inside another folder. Always store it in the root level of an external drive or in one of the following locations. Again, users public documents, Avid Media Composer on Windows, or users shared Media Composer, no spaces, inside one of those. That way, you've got the proper root directory, and Avid can source for it properly. So again, if you're on a flash drive, I've got that folder, your USB, pretending this was a flash drive. You're going to keep this Avid Space Media Files folder right available. It has to be right on the root directory of your flash drive. And with that, we've reached the end of this lesson. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to leave them in the comment section. To my students, I will see you in class. And to everyone on the YouTube and internet sphere, like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye.